Believe it or not, when you just listen, you take notes, you acknowledge that what they're sharing is great and that you're learning from it, they think you're a rock star. And honestly, you said very little yourself. So I just share that.
Here we go. Well, thank you so much, Giselle, for coming on. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I'm so excited to share with you. And I think this podcast is great. So I'm so excited that you invited me to participate.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a really fun conversation. I guess as we get started, can you tell us just a little bit about how you became a career coach? What's driving you into this space?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, I actually started, I went to school for hospitality, hotel administration. I love to travel. And so I was like, I think I'm going to study hospitality. So I actually went to Cornell University for the hotel program. And when I graduated, I got a job in Orlando, Florida, opening up the first Universal Hotel. And it was super fun and exciting. Loved every minute of it. It was a great job when you're single and you can work crazy hours. And I did group and convention sales. Loved it. And then shortly after I started working there, I volunteered for an organization that helps people that are underemployed and unemployed, how to build a resume, how to interview, how to get them ready for the job market. And I honestly fell in love with helping people do that. And so fast forward 5 years, my boss called me into her office to promote me. I said, I think I don't want to do sales. I think I want to go into something more like HR or career advising. And so I, through networking, found a friend that used to work with my husband, and she was hiring for a career advisor position at a local university. I did that. For until I had my kids. And then I was able to get my master's at that university and started teaching part time. So honestly, for over 20 years, I have been teaching how to build a resume, how to interview, equipping students that were usually students that were coming back for a second career or second degree on how to find their next dream job, their next dream career. And absolutely loved every minute of it. The last few years, my husband has really been encouraging me to do it on my own. And the kids are a little bit older now. They don't need me as much. And so I feel like this is the right time. So I have loved being able to help people one on one, to really pour into this season of life that could be so stressful for so many. And so it has been a just wonderful experience to be able to share something that I'm super passionate about and have so many years of experience teaching and walking people through it, to get to do it one-on-one with individuals.
Okay, that's really cool. I did not know that, kind of how your story has led you to this space. It's like you've always had this type of work. You've always wanted to help people in this capacity. That's really
Mhm.
neat.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. Well, we know a little bit about you. Tell us about the people that you help.
Yeah. So I have focused on teachers and educators that are transitioning to corporate. And it honestly breaks my heart because I love teachers. I think the world of them. I literally pray for my kids' teachers every morning. But there are quite a few that have just experienced burnout, especially
Mm.
because within the last 5 years, there's just a lot more that has been expected of teachers, a lot more that they have to juggle. And many of them are bringing a ton of work home. Their hours are not, what you think. They don't get to leave school when school's up, but they have so much homework for, that they have to bring home, and the grading and all the things that they have to do. So when teachers and educators seek out a career coach to help them transition to corporate, I just love that. I'm not usually discouraging anyone from becoming a teacher, which is honestly my biggest conviction when I started working with this group. I was like, I just don't ever want, someone to leave teaching if that's their passion. But most of them, when they've reached out to me, it's because they are so done. They're so ready for something new. And then I definitely want to help them be able to use all their experiences and passions to find something that's just right for them. And many times they're still doing amazing things, with the people that they get to work with. It's just a different audience sometimes. But
Yeah.
that's who I mostly work with. Yeah, and it's been great because because of the way that I homeschooled my children in a model that was 50-50. So I got to, for 8 years, really partner with a lot of educators
Mm.
and kind of experience from anywhere from kindergarten through high school, different teachers that kind of like what their world looks like. And we would, as the parents in that school model, we would be kind of like the teacher's assistants. So I got to walk through life that way. And then obviously teaching at two different colleges and universities, I got to experience that firsthand, myself. So that's why I can relate to their pain points really well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I love that, you've experienced education from so many different facets, right? The faculty stance and instructor stance, the homeschooling, the collaborations. That's really neat. Okay, well, there's a lot that, we're going to talk about today. We're going to focus our conversation on networking, and so I'm kind of excited for that. Just to kind of get started, if there is somebody who's like, as soon as you say the word networking, like I just check out. You know what I mean? Like, just to start this conversation, I always think of networking as business cards, right? Let's grab our business cards and let's go to this mixer with all these professionals and get as many business cards as you can. And you have to follow up. And I feel like that's the old way of networking, right? You and I had a conversation before this and really started talking more about what networking really is at the core and how we make
Mhm.
it easier. So I'd love to start off with just your thoughts on that.
Yes, I have met many people that when I bring up the fact that networking is one of the best ways to find opportunities, to learn about opportunities that may be out there that you usually are not able to apply to by just, going online and finding a job. You could just immediately tell in their face, they're like, oh, you want me to do that? And so, what I like to share with people is that networking is really the equivalent of research. Like if you just wanted to reach out to someone and number one, let them know that you think that whatever they do, whatever knowledge and experience they have is wonderful, right? So you compliment them because you may have done a little bit of research. You look on LinkedIn, you check out what they do, and you learn like, hey, this person has been working in this industry for 10 years. They have a wealth of knowledge in maybe an organization or in a job career that I may be interested in pursuing. And
Mm.
so, what I like to just share with individuals that are scared of networking is listen, just let someone know that you just want to learn from their experience, that you're doing research because you're looking at opportunities for what your future may look like. And so you just want to learn from them. And most people are really, really open to sharing their story, sharing their experience, where they've been, what they have done. And so it's not a really intimidating interview where they're going to be asking you questions and you're, having to be prepared. You have a list of questions that you are the one that is asking them the majority of the questions, and you let them do most of the talking. And believe it or not, when you just listen, you take notes, you acknowledge that what they're sharing is great and that you're learning from it. They think you're a rock star. And honestly, you said very little yourself. So I just share that just so that they can just begin to imagine what it could look like without it being as intimidating as whatever they may think networking looks like.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It reminds me, I'm sure you've heard of it, especially teaching, um, the law of reciprocity. Heard
Hmm.
that, right? Where it's kind of like there's a book, and I talk about this book all the time because I think it's so good. It's called The Introvert's Edge to Networking. It's by Matthew Pollard. I think he's going to be a guest in a couple of weeks, which I'm really excited about. But this rule of reciprocity is similar to what you're mentioning, right? If I and this can apply to networking. I always try to say like relationship building because anytime I say networking, people are like, oh, but that this rule of reciprocity is let me ask you about you, let me invest in you, let me value you. And people inevitably, you don't have to worry about yourself when you take care of other people. Inevitably, they'll be like, well, tell me about yourself. I've been talking about myself for 5 whole minutes. Like, tell me about you. And it just opens up the door. So there's ways to have conversations where you're not saying, can I tell you about my thing? Instead, you invest in them. And then as a result, they invest in you, which is really neat. So I like that you shared that and I can see those connections.
Yes, absolutely. I think that we get really intimidated when we think about, meeting someone that you may not know, that you may know very little about them, that maybe you're thinking, I don't know, my future can be on the line based on whatever I say or not say. And so instead, just using it as an experience to just let the person know, like, hey, I am just learning here and absorbing as much as I can about this type of work, about this industry, about your company. I always tell job seekers, you want to start with one person that you feel comfortable with, right? It could be a
Mm,
family member, it could be a friend, but someone that you can kind of just let your guard down, ask the questions, and then when you have that experience, you feel so much more empowered. Like that was not so scary. Like that was not as intimidating as I thought it would have been or could have been. And so I feel like once you have one under your belt that you felt really good, then you're just like, okay, I may be able to reach out to a total stranger and ask them some questions and realize that you don't have to have a million answers ready because it's really more about listening to them and learning from them.
absolutely. And one of the things in that situation is just figuring out not only like starting with someone that you know, but then when you go into the job search, I notice almost immediately, and if you're listening right now and you're thinking, oh, shoot, that's me, that was me too. But when you go into this job search, you want to go for like, I'm going to go for my favorite company first. That's a lot of pressure. So start with an
Right.
organization that you think, it's okay if I don't, move forward in this process. It's more of let me really focus on the person, let me not worry about the outcome. And the less you worry about what you need to pull out of it, the more you're naturally like your verbal, your tone of voice, your nonverbal behaviors, like every micro decision is going to come out of that place of intention and motivation that you have where you're like, I'm not worried on getting the outcome. And so it'll feel that way to the person you're networking with, and it'll just feel more natural. Once you recognize, like, oh, that's what it's supposed to feel like, that's how it's supposed to go, then you can say, okay, let me go into, networking or relationship building with people in an organization that maybe I'm more interested in. And you slowly kind of stop climbing the ladder in that way.
Absolutely. I actually recommend, like I said earlier, starting with someone that you know well. It could honestly be a neighbor because what's interesting about people that we may know really well. So I want you to think about maybe someone that you would be friends with on Instagram or Facebook. Like most of those people, you really don't have a clue where they work, right? Because you're just friends. You maybe have things in common, whether it's maybe you went to the same school or this or that, but you don't really truly know. Like LinkedIn is all about where do you work and where have you worked, and but other social media sites are more just like social. They're just where are people going out on dates and what do they recommend and things like that. But I want you to think about, for example, your next door neighbor. You may see your next door neighbor every day. You may say hi when you guys go in and out, but you may not know that your next door neighbor's brother works for your dream company, right? It's so wild. And so if you were to just start having these conversations with people you feel comfortable with, maybe it's a cousin you only see at Thanksgiving, or it's someone that you just touch base with once a year because you send them a Christmas card or something like that. But you start having these little conversations, and the trick is number one to be super I always say super cautious of their time, right? Because if you say to somebody, hey, I'd love to schedule a 20 to 30-minute coffee chat or informational interview, whatever you want to call it, as you start asking questions, as you start gaining, learning more about them, learning more about what they've done, learning more about the organization they work for. Um, it's just, you start feeling more and more comfortable. And then towards the end, you can whether it's maybe it's a Zoom call. And by the way, I always recommend you try number one to do it in person because there's such wonderful dynamics when you can meet with someone in person. But number two, if you can't, because obviously there's a million things that can come up, doing it over Zoom so that they can see you, you can see them. I would even recommend that you record yourself just so that you can see if there's anything you need to fix for the next one and, little things that you can improve upon. But when you are meeting with this person, you want to keep an eye on the clock. And I say that because when you're about 5 minutes from the whatever, if you said 25 minutes that you're going to meet with them. Or, if you said anywhere between 20 to 30, stick to that 25 and say, you know what, I see that we have about 5 minutes left and I want to be very respectful of your time. I wanted to ask you if you know anyone else that you would be able to recommend that I can schedule another coffee chat that looks like this with. Now, if you were someone that was really interested in this person's story, if you just asked questions, if you were respectful of their time, 99% of the time, people are going to be like, absolutely. Like, they're going to feel like this was so wonderful. The fact that you let me share, that you were genuinely interested in what I do, in my story, they're going to be like, absolutely. Let me actually think about somebody and I'll get back to you. They might think of someone right away. They're like, yeah, my coworker that, sits next to me. And so, asking that magical little question that allows for you to make another connection, whether at that company that you're dreaming of working at, or the industry, or maybe they have the job title that you want. That's going to be the key.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Something that you mentioned, um, you talked about, LinkedIn and Facebook, right? So I just want to back up for that just in a quick moment, just a couple different points that you mentioned along the way. And one of those is, you on Facebook, you see the personal life. And on LinkedIn, you see the professional life, right? And so I
Yes.
encourage you to start blurring the line a little bit, meaning the people who you see on Facebook, start learning about what they do professionally. And the people who you see on LinkedIn, get to know them beyond their job title, right? And so you don't want to ask really personal questions, but you do want to get to know them as a person. And I think sometimes what happens is the experience of the platform really sort of guides us into having one conversation. If you're on
Yeah.
Instagram, it's some trend. If you're on Facebook, it's your cousin and your uncle and the barbecue. If you're on LinkedIn, it's what job do you have? Do you have a job for me? Like it's very transactional. But I'm seeing more and more that even on LinkedIn, there's more personal information that's being shared. There's more kind of like I'm a full human, right? It's not just me at work. And so, pay attention to that as you see on LinkedIn. That way you can network both in person and on the platform. And the other thing that, as you were mentioning, I thought, man, this is so interesting. So let me start with LinkedIn. When you log into LinkedIn, you see the interface. You see your feed, you see your profile, and maybe a couple buttons you can click, and you think that's it. But on the back end of LinkedIn, there's an entire multi-million dollar, recruiter software. There's a salesperson software. There's a giant algorithm. There's so much you don't see. And the same thing is true when you are meeting the butcher at the grocery store. You have no idea who they're connected to. So imagine that behind every story, there's an entire web of people who you can connect to, an entire web of people who, might be interested in what you do. You just don't ever know. So definitely consider that what we're looking at on a day to day is just the tip of the iceberg. And if you would dig a little bit and get to know folks, you'll be surprised at what you'll find. So it's really interesting to kind of see how those pieces align. Now, I know that you and I can go on for a very long time. But there's a specific question that I wanted to ask you because I know that there's different perspectives on this and I'd love to get yours. One of them is, you know, what about the thought? Because you mentioned at the end of the conversation, you can easily just ask someone, hey, who else can I connect to? Right. How do you help people get over the idea of, well, no one's going to want to connect me with other people because it feels right. And I know if you're listening, I know what you're thinking, or at least I can share what I'm thinking, is that you think, well, no one wants to connect me with someone else because it's going to feel like the person who's a salesperson and they're like, who else can you connect me to? And then, you never really want to share information. So, how do you get past that?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. Number one, start with people that know you. So it could be someone you worked with in the past that knows your work ethic, that knows how you work, how you are around people, because they trust, right? They're people that would be able to recommend you. If they did have a job in their pocket, they would be like, yes, I want to help you. But making sure to start there. Start with people that you know well, that you feel comfortable reaching out to, alumni, people that you went to school with, maybe even people that go to your same school because you have that common denominator that's so fun that you can bring up. Another one is people that serve on association boards. I know that sounds super random, but let me tell you a little bit about that. So let's say that you have a local chapter of Project Managers International in your town, and you want to learn more about project management. Maybe this is a type of role that you're looking into. Go on the website and find out Project Managers International in your town and find who the board of directors are for that group. It is insane how the people that volunteer to serve in different associations, right? And honestly, most careers, most industries have an association. So find the association that's closest to what it is that you want to do, and find out who are the people that volunteer to serve on those associations and on those boards, because they are usually connectors. Number one, they've been in that industry for a while. If not, they wouldn't go into an association that served that, group. They're connectors in the way that they know others that come to the meetings, whether it's online or in person. They know others that serve on the board with them. Many times their email is actually on the board website. It could be an association email, but it links to their email. So there's ways to find. You could even look them up on LinkedIn because you have their name. Many times they have the organization they work for. So if you've exhausted your list of family, friends, neighbors, people that you've worked with, alumni that you've gone to school with, next one is association board members. Those are amazing people that absolutely love, 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 love to connect people to their industry and share all the knowledge that they have. Usually, not always, but usually they're a little bit older. And I would honestly say, even as you look through people to interview and to ask for a coffee chat or an informational interview, look for people that are a little bit older, because what happens when you get to a certain age, you start thinking about the legacy that you're going to leave behind within your industry and your line of work. And you have so much to share, with all the experience that you bring to the table. So many of those people may just have, and they also may have a little bit more availability to meet with you. Others that are younger in the industry and may not have had as much experience may be willing to meet with you. It may just take a little bit longer to get in their schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of what you bring up is the strategy behind it, right? So it's not, I think in the beginning, right? If you're listening, maybe you're halfway through the episode and you're like, okay, so I reach out to people I know, and you might be feeling like, but how do I get closer to the job offer? I feel like I'm just going to be having conversations, right? There is both a strategy in having the conversation. So one of the things I help people through is like working through, and I'm sure you do as well, Giselle, is like working through a warm up at the beginning of the conversation, engagement, starting to position yourself, starting to provide your value, and all of, having a subtle buy in, getting a soft close, opening the door for later, like having all those parts of the conversation so that even if you meet with someone who's like, oh, this is my nephew's neighbor, right? They think it's going to be just an informational. You can still slowly and very subtly, still showing value for them, pivot the conversation into a career conversation. But then the other thing you mentioned right now is essentially a really great strategy to stop using the front door. I think everyone uses the front door, right? Applying on job boards, front door. Messaging their recruiter and the hiring leader, front door, right? And it's not to say that you can't use the front door. That's the main door. So keep using it. But what's the side door? What's the back door? What is an opportunity that is not being leveraged? And you're mentioning one of the strategies, right? Reaching out to people at associations, because guess what? They're not the hiring leader. So they don't
Mhm.
have a million emails in their inbox. Let's say, for example, if you reach out to a hiring leader or recruiter when there's a posting, it's too late. There's too many people already messaging. So let's go through the side door and let's message them when there is no posting. So now you get those hidden job markets. But then in addition to that, there's strategies like what you just mentioned, Giselle, like reaching out to people who have a lot to share, who are in a position that they want to share that information, and who also are well connected and are naturally connectors because of their current role. It tells you, it gives you, little hints. This is going to sound so random, but have you ever seen Suits like that?
Yes,
You
yes,
have.
yes. Such a great show.
Isn't it great? I love it. If you're listening and you haven't watched Suits, like hop onto Netflix. It's a great show. So let me tell you about Donna. Okay. So on Suits, there's a woman. Her name is Donna. And she is so good. Like she can look at you and she'll say, "Why did you lose the case?" And you're like, "What do you, I never told you." And she'll say, "Well, the handkerchief in your pocket is slightly to the left, which means you pulled it when blah, blah, blah." Like she will literally discern the temperature in the room. She'll discern what has or has not happened and what the best strategy is based on little hints that she sees. So I want you to start paying attention to the things around you and figuring out what's the front door and what are some opportunities to go through the side door or the back door that other people aren't taking advantage of so that I can stand out. And then when you find something that works, you should be like Giselle and I and share it with other people so they can find that side door too.
Yes, yes. I do want to add one more thing because of what you said. Your listeners may be saying, okay, so you want me to have a ton of meetings with people, ask them who else I can talk to, and, have more meetings with people. But here's the magic ticket that I didn't mention just yet. When you are done with that one meeting from the very, very, very first one that you have, that same day before you go to bed, I want you to send a thank you to that person. Okay. Send them a thank you via email. Try to get their email. If you forgot because you were too nervous, send it to them through LinkedIn, but always remember the very next time, get their email. But send a thank you right away, right away. And in this thank you, I want you to include two things. Number one, say to them, hey, I know that I mentioned at the very end of our meeting, if you knew anybody else that I could maybe learn from. Remember, I'm just doing research. I want to learn more about this industry, this career, this type of work. If you've thought of anybody else, would you please share? And number two, here's a copy of my resume in case you ever hear of an opportunity that comes available. So remember, this person may not be a recruiter. This person may not have any hiring power, but if they are working in an organization or in the field that you're interested in, they may know of opportunities that become available in their company, in their organization, in the association that they're a part of, whatever it may be. And so sharing those two things, number one, asking them again, is there anybody else that you think I can meet with? And number two, if you hear of any opportunities, here's a copy of my resume. That right there will not only open doors for you to have another, I don't know, 20, 30, 100 more informational or coffee chats, but this may really open an opportunity, like Patricia said earlier, when those hiring managers and recruiters do have opportunities, right? When a position comes available, you become that person whose resume gets sent in before the position even gets posted. And so that's where you want to be. And if you have a number of these meetings, the probability of that happening just goes up and up and up because you're having more and more conversations, more and more people that are in that field have a copy of your resume, and you're just learning from their experiences.
Oh my goodness, this is such an important part of positioning. Like putting yourself in a space where everyone is reactive. Everyone is, this is just all of us. This is just the way we are because, what do we know? We're entering the job search and we're just applying the way we've always known to apply. But what you're doing is instead of waiting for an application and then applying for it, you're basically setting things up. So now there's ultimately going to be 15, 20, 30 people over a span of 2 or 3 months that now have your resume, now have a good conversation, a good experience with you, and then can send you up to the hiring leaders. So this has been so incredibly helpful. I am excited for you. If you're sitting here having a coffee chat with us, I'm so excited for you because this is just like really breaking the door wide open to your opportunities and your job search. Now, before we wrap up with our coffee chat, though, Giselle, I'd love for you to share, your final thoughts. If you had everyone, like let's say everyone who's listening, which by the way, it's at this point we're like at 1,500 listens a month, which is awesome. So thank you so much for sticking around with us. Absolutely love that you're here with us. And so if you're one of the, let's say Giselle, you're sitting here and there's like the 1,500 people, they're in the room, they're sitting here right now, and we've got only 1 minute before the bell rings, right? What do you want to share?
I just want to share that this may sound like a real nerve-wracking thing to do, especially for introverts, especially for those that are just shy, which is really all of us with people
Mm.
that are strangers. Just know that most people in this entire world love to share their story. They love to be heard. They love for others to hear about what they've done, about the work that they have accomplished, the experiences that they have. Because honestly, most people don't get to share their story. They don't get to talk about work, not even with their spouses, because they may not want to hear it. But just being able to give the opportunity for someone to share their story for 25 minutes, asking really key questions like, what qualities or skills do you think are essential for someone to find success in this role or industry, or how did you land your first opportunity in this industry? Like, just sharing with them questions that will let them tell their story is actually a gift. You are giving them a gift, and they're going to feel great about it. And that's where the door will open for them to say, hey, yeah, absolutely, I'd love for you to do the same thing with a coworker or someone else that I know that works in this field.
I love that. I love that. I had a mentor. Every time you and I talk, I feel like it reminds me of something. I had a mentor. Actually, I still have a mentor. He's amazing, and he kind of taught me like this thing with appreciation. You know how homes appreciate in value? Well, he
Yes.
was saying when you give someone your full attention, you're appreciating them, and literally their value goes up, not
Mm.
just in your eyes, but also for themselves. And so it's kind of this really cool blessing that you're able to provide for folks. So I really love that you shared that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So thanks again, everyone, for hanging out with us. Before we let you go, though, I know that you might be interested in, hey, how do I follow Giselle? How do I see more of her content? Can you share some of that with us?
Yes, absolutely. The best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I actually give job seekers tips every Monday through Friday, and it's Giselle Moratin.
All right, we'll include that link. We'll include that link. Well,
Mhm.
friends, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I hope you learned quite a bit about networking. Know that Giselle is actually coming back. We are actually doing a series of 3 different episodes, and Giselle will be coming back. We'll be chatting again on April 29th. So stick around. We'll see you for that one. In the next episode on April 8th, you're going to hear from me on an interview master course. So head back in here, follow if you need to, all the good things. Thanks around for sticking with us, and know that we love you. We're praying for you, and we'll see you on the next one. Hey, thanks for listening. I really appreciate you spending time with me today. If you found this episode helpful, please tap the 5-star review on the show's homepage in your podcast app. It would absolutely make my day, and it helps others discover the Uncommon Career Podcast. Now, to download your free career resources and learn how I help seasoned professionals land amazing offers in as little as 90 days, click on the link in the description or go to theuncommoncareer.com. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one.